From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Ageless Enthusiasm. On this episode, we visit with Susan Peters and hear about the family dinner table. And also, I speak with Janice Perkins, who talks about abundance and capacity in her life. And finally, we speak with Scott Pierce on how he chased a dream of becoming a game day announcer and finally caught up with it. All that is coming up on this episode of Ageless Enthusiasm. Welcome to Ageless Enthusiasm. I'm the host, Mindy East, and tonight our guest is Susan Peters of the Family Dinner Table. Susan, you're a speaker, a former anchor, you're the founder of Susan's Kids, and you host also Larry Hatterberg's People.
Yeah.
And the Family Dinner Table.
And the Family Dinner Table.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you on because your show is getting very popular with our members and viewers. Tell us a little bit about what is the Family Dinner Table about?
Well, I'm half Italian, half Lebanese, okay? So we gathered around the Family Dinner Table almost every night. There were sports and there were other activities, but as much as we could, my family of 8, I have 5 brothers and sisters, gathered around the family dinner table, and it was our time to communicate with each other, create memories, and cement values and traditions. And for so long, years and years, I've wanted to bring that to life in a show. And I am so grateful to PBS Kansas for giving me the opportunity to bring that show to life. It's about more than just family recipes, because it's all about family recipes, but more than that, it's about the traditions you create around the family dinner table, the memories you create around the family dinner table, the conversations you have around the family dinner table. And I have a saying with the family dinner table: we start the show off and end the show off with, gather around the family dinner table as much as you can, because when families come together around the dinner table, families come together. And that to me is just so true. The family dinner table is where you cement your bond. And so we created this show, the Family Dinner Table, and right now we're bringing chefs on board, and they tell us about their family recipe. They're not restaurant recipes, they are family recipes, handed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's the beauty of this show. They're not restaurant-inspired recipes, they're family-inspired recipes.
Tell me about one of your favorite family recipes.
Okay, my mother used to make something called porcupine balls. Have you ever heard of porcupine balls?
I think so.
Okay, they're meatballs as a main dish, okay? But they have rice inside, and you put them over rice with a nice sauce, and that was one of my mother's and mine favorite dishes, is the porcupine balls. And of course, she was Italian, so she made all kinds of great Italian recipes as well. Now, my Lebanese side, I like the hummus and the rolled grape leaves and the rolled cabbage rolls and the kibbeh.
Wow.
I mean, you can't beat those recipes.
No.
So, yeah.
Especially if they're handwritten and you still have them in a box.
For my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, my brother made the Peters family cookbook. And it's all my grandmother Peters and my grandmother Kapranica and my mother. handwritten recipes and pictures of them, and then pictures inside of our family and our ancestors and that kind of thing.
What a treasure.
It's
what a
such
treasure.
a treasure, such a treasure.
Yes. So I know another thing that's near and dear to your heart is Susan's Kids.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
I just, it's a passion of mine. Long time ago at Cake Channel 10, I started something called Susan's Kids. And once a month, we'd feature a foster child in Kansas who is looking for a forever home, an adoptive home. And that happened once a month for like 15 years. I did it at Channel 10. When I retired 5 years ago, I said, the only thing I want to do is expand that. And thank goodness and thank God I had the opportunity to expand Susan's Kids. And I got a sponsor, I got several sponsors at first. And then now I have one sponsor, Brandon Stephen Motors, who gives us Susan's Kids money to buy the commercial time and to produce the segments. And we still feature one child a month on TV and social media. And we produce 30-second commercials. And then on susanskids.org is a longer video of each child. And I am so happy to say that KWCH Channel 12 is my sole TV sponsor now, and they've given me so much time and effort to host these kids on commercial time, 30 seconds, and say, this child is looking for a forever home. It is amazing when you give these kids exposure. That's all they need. All they need is exposure.
And you've been wildly successful with the percentages of
40% of these kids get adopted after we put them on TV and social media, which is an amazing statistic because
national.
These are the hard to, I don't want to say hard to adopt, but these are the ones that are most likely to not be adopted. That's the ones they give me.
Okay.
And so we put these kids on TV and 40% of them get adopted.
Wow.
And they're the 12-year-olds, the 13-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the sibling groups. And so we're very, very happy about that percentage.
Because the national average is way lower than that.
3%.
My goodness.
The state of Kansas average, because they have an adoptkskids.org is the state of Kansas's website. Their average is 3%. But that just tells you these kids, once you give them exposure, they get adopted. That's all they need. They just need exposure.
Wow.
And so,
well, you saw a problem and you found a solution.
Found a solution.
And so that's so fulfilling.
It's great.
Oh, that's wonderful. And now we're going to continue our conversation with Janice Perkins. Janice, welcome.
Thank you.
You're a speaker, a mom, business owner, and you are also one of our go-to people as far as embodying Ageless Enthusiasm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Of course. So when you turned 50, you got your MBA and you started a company recently called Capacity. Tell me what capacity means to you.
Capacity is really what we have to give to other people. And I named the company that because I really want people to understand we limit our own capacity, our own internal obstacles and sometimes external obstacles keep us from our best self. So instead of thinking about doing less with more, I actually want people to think about doing more with less so that I have more to give because I have actually reserves intact.
Well, I know as a busy mom of teenagers, you also have aging parents that you help with. You've got a mom with Alzheimer's, and then you've got a dad that's also her main caregiver, but she's in assisted living. So you're balancing between the two, plus you've got a full-time job, you're running a company. What do you do to keep yourself motivated when you find yourself lacking?
So one of the biggest things I learned in the past couple of years, I always hear the term balance, right? Work-life balance, and I think that's a myth. And trying to balance the sandwich of parenting parents and parenting teenagers and being self-employed is very difficult. And so what I even train my clients is about keeping things in tension, like the tension of a guitar string. When it's tuned to the right tension, it produces more harmony. And so instead of thinking I have to choose this or this, and I have to sacrifice something or balance something perfectly, it never feels perfectly a balance. So when I need encouraging for myself, I think about how something in my life needs to be in better tension so that it can produce more harmony for me in that moment. And I just have to be more adaptable and flexible, and that is really helpful.
So if you could go back and give your younger self some advice or encouragement, what would that be?
I would probably start with saying I should trust myself more, trust my gut, be me, not be who I think people want me to be or what the world tells me I should be, not apologize for how God made me, and to embrace my skills and talents and really step in fully to who I am.
That's an excellent answer, because so often we do just rush through life and we look to someone else and try to emulate them. And I know that you've got some wonderful mentors in your life. What female, either past or present, would you like to emulate?
I would say there are qualities from a variety of women. My mom always was incredibly generous. There were strangers at our table all the time. My aunt, who has stepped in and been a lot of a mom to me, and her ability to laugh at everything. I think that's taught me a lot. I have two incredible sisters whose strength and generosity teach me new things about myself every day. They push me. And I've been incredibly blessed to have a circle of women that have these gorgeous gifts that I get to learn from. You know, I also look at local rock star Helen Galloway, who's still working at 91. She is a firecracker. And if I could have even an ounce of her firecracker every day, I would love it. And energy. And tenacity. And there are just women like that who have really made a giant impact on me. There are big strangers off in the distance, but it's the people who touch me and my heart that have made the most impact on me.
Give me a little example of the impact that some of these women had in your life.
Absolutely. I'll tell you about my older sister, who we're barely 18 months apart, but she really formidably was like my second mom growing up. And she's one of the strongest women I know. And she works for the State Department and has traveled all over the world and always has the wise thing to say, the right thing to say when I ask her for her advice. When I think about needing to be strong, she's the person that I lean on and that I think of in moments when I think I can't.
Oh, that's beautiful. I never had a sister, so I'm in awe of people that have a wonderful relationship with theirs. There's a trending term right now that says if you don't see a seat at the table, how would you finish that sentence for me?
At different points in my career, I'd finished it differently.
Give me an example.
Earlier in my career, I would say build your own table, which in essence I kind of still did recently, and starting my MBA so late and starting my own business. But there are other ways to think about the table. I think building your own table means that you don't have to think about the classic seat at the table the way we used to as women. There's no reason I can't restructure the concept and then invite more people to the table. I have a spirit of abundance mentality, so there's always enough room. But I also think we don't have to think about needing to be at the table. How about sitting at the bar and be in style in the middle of the floor? Like, make it work and make it happen for you where you need to. It doesn't have to be so traditional, and it doesn't have to be so formal. I think if we think about the world in more abundance, then we don't have to think about having our own chair that way.
Right. And I've heard if you don't see a seat at the table, you could be on the menu.
That's funny.
And now I'd like to bring Scott Pierce into our conversation. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Glad to have you today. You're a speaker and a game day announcer and an all-around funny guy.
Yes, I am dumb enough to believe that I can do anything and smart enough to try it once. And so I just try to put it all into the mix to keep up with all of it.
Tell me where that philosophy has served you well in life.
So, you know, I am always about sort of improving the theme, and I've just lived nearly my entire life feeling dumb enough that I can do anything. And I think there's something to be said with at least trying. You never know what your capability is unless you just give it the old Gipper try. I have failed at some things, no doubt. And there are times you just have to redirect and go another direction. But I found in most of my exploits that I could do the things that I set out to do. I remember going all the way back to when I was in college. I decided to take an applied guitar class because I thought at the time I was a new dad. And I thought, man, every new dad needs to know how to play the guitar so they could play the
Cats
guitar
in the
and
cradle.
sit around and sing songs to their children. So I took applied guitar and I learned a little bit of guitar. And then later in life, I learned some other instruments. So, you just have to be willing to try. And I'm always observant of things and themes that I think could probably be improved. And if I can be a part of that process, awesome.
So you also decided you wanted to learn the drums when you were 30.
Yeah, right.
And you accomplished that. And then you were on stage with tell us who you played with.
Yeah, so, I was an instrumentalist growing up, right? I played horn, trumpet, French horn, anything brass pretty much, anything with valves and brass. And I had drummer friends. I always wanted to be a drummer, but I wasn't a drummer. So I went to some of their drum clinics when I was a kid and just dabbled. And then later in life, once again, I think I can do that. There was an opportunity at my church at the time with the praise band, and the drummer moved to another city. And I went to the choir director and I said, call me crazy, but I think I can do that. He said, I think you're crazy. I said, well, let's try it. And so I took a crash course. I took a quick lesson from a professor at a local university to read how to read drum music better than I could. And we went from there. And the next thing you know, I'm playing in pageants. And the next thing you know, a handful of years later, improving on the theme, I'm playing with Music Theater of Wichita. And I'm on stage with playing Curtains Up and playing the preview shows for all of their upcoming season shows. And it's surreal. I'm thinking, not so many years ago, I was not a drummer. And now, for all practical purposes, I'm a professional drummer playing with Music Theater of Wichita. So I'm telling you, anything's possible. If you dream it and you pursue it, you can do it.
So tell us a little bit about your passion to become a game day announcer after age 50.
Right? That was never in my psyche, ever. And so I was the chair of an alumni committee at Fringe University. And I had to raise my hand and say I hadn't been to games since I graduated. So I committed to going to some games. I went to some games. And my evaluation was, the lack of booster support may be the result of there's not a lot of programming here. If your son wasn't playing football or your daughter wasn't cheering, what's the purpose of being here? In contrast to, say, a Division I program or a bigger program. And the announcing was not very good. I'm not going to say what I thought, but it wasn't very good. And so I made an appointment with the then athletic director, and I shared my findings. And I was not prepared to say what I did, but again, looking for opportunities to improve the theme, being dumb enough to believe I can do anything. When I told him what I thought the problem was, he asked me, well, what do you want me to do about it? And with very little hesitation, I said,
Pick me.
let me do it. And he said, do you have any experience? I said, no. He said, why would I let you do it? And I used that line. I am dumb enough to believe I can do anything, smart enough to try. And so I got a commitment to do the next 2 games. Let me do the next 2 games. If I deliver, we'll go forward. And if I don't, you can tell me I'm not it. I won't take it personal. I was smart enough, Mindy, to reach out to Division I announcers in the area, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma University, Nebraska, and say, look, I'm taking on this role. I have very little experience. Will you give me some pearls? And they all did. And so I took that information, put it into play, and now I'm announcing in 2 college venues at Fringe University, at Wichita State University, local high schools, postseason championships. I mean, getting invited to do more and more. And so I've just capitalized on that learning and that growth. And you never stop learning.
Right.
I still learn something every single game. I still, to this day, I change some little nuance to make what I do more efficient, more professional, better.
Now I know, Scott, you have survived 2 near-death experiences. What did you learn out of those 2 experiences that has helped you move forward in life?
Well, Mindy, for those who know me, I've been in some kind of medical field capacity for nearly my entire adult life. And in the medicine world, much of that is an algorithm process. It's getting from step A to step B to step C to step D. And sometimes it doesn't always go as you plan. And so you have to sort of plan for contingencies. And for most of my life, I've adopted this philosophy of what's important now. And so in both of those circumstances, when things seemed dire, I employed that philosophy. What's important now? What needs to happen right now to effect the next step in the process to get me from this box to this box? It might be a move to the right, a move to the left, a move down, but to execute on the algorithm to get a favorable outcome. And in both of those situations, I was ultimately successful in surviving because I employed what is important now. What's the most important thing that needs to happen to execute this algorithm to get to the next place so that that box now affects the next box and so on.
And that has helped me in my life. I use that almost daily, especially when I'm thinking, okay, I can either show up on time or I can be wearing pants. What's important now? I usually go with the pants.
Yeah, nice. Perfect.
Yeah, I thought
I'm glad.
so too. Yes, thank you. If you knew that your life was going to be over tomorrow, how would you spend it?
I think that I would answer that with fulfill today. You know, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. For all we know, I could pull out of this parking lot today and that's it. So fulfill today, fulfill each moment. And I think I really try to do that in my life. I try to fulfill today because if, you know, we, in a 24-hour period, we've got probably 6 to 8 hours of sleep in there somewhere. And for the remainder of that time, did I do the things today that when I lay my head on the pillow, that I can say, today was a good day. Today was a day that I filled up with something that effected a change for the positive, whether it's in my life, your life, or someone else's. Did I fulfill today? And if I could do that every single day, I think life would turn out probably pretty favorable most of the time.
I agree. Scott, thank you so much. You're one of my favorite people, and I appreciate you being here today.
All right.
I'd like to bring Susan Peters back now with her closing thoughts. Susan, your dad is just aging gracefully, and he's in his 90s, very active. Tell me how he is being an example for you to follow.
It's humble. He's 92, acts like he's 62. It's incredible. My father at age 92 is a composer. He used to be in a big band that traveled all around the Midwest when he was young, obviously in his 20s. So he played the saxophone in the big band, but he's always composed music as well. Of course, that was put off when he had a family and had to make money and blah, blah, blah. In the last 2 years, he composes song after song after song, beautiful songs, religious songs and secular songs about love and his marriage to my mother of 65 years, and just beautiful songs. He's an author. He has written a book
On leadership.
And 67 things, conversations you should have with yourself that will change your life.
Wow.
That's the title of the book. And he's also in the middle of writing a podcast. So he's 92 and not slowing down. He challenges me to make the most of my retirement, and like you do, and you're not necessarily retired, neither of us are retired, but you know what I mean, of our older years. And he's an amazing example of how you produce, and not only produce, but this is it, give in your retirement years. That's the key. That's what makes us feel good and us be productive, is that we can give. Elderly people have so much to give in their later years. And if we just sit and listen to them and talk to them and know that they are the experienced ones, they're the ones that have so much to give. We can learn so much from them.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the older we get, the more wise and wonderful we become. There's a saying that says, if you don't see a seat at the table, I'll let you finish that sentence.
Okay, I'm gonna say, put a lasagna in the oven and bring the lasagna along with an extra plate to the table and say, here you go, guys. Here is my contribution to this table.
I love
Always make a contribution to the table and you will have a seat.
Oh, that's a beautiful sentiment. And food brings us all together,
Food brings us together.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you,
As
Mindy,
always,
for
it's a pleasure
having
to
me.
have you. Thank you. And thank you for watching this edition of Ageless Enthusiasm. I'm Mindy East, your host. We'll see you next time.